I became really interested in this whole foreclosure situation after that, because there's just over 10 million people nationally are losing their homes. I recently saw a film about the Too Big to Fail, showing about how the government put money through TARP money into the banks. And the banks just sort of took this money. They were supposed to use it to make it available to people, but instead they just paid themselves off, they paid their shareholders off. They didn't use that money for the purpose the government gave it to them for. And so, many people just were forced into foreclosure because the banks didn't lend the money anymore. And so they continue. Right now, as we talk, there's a new wave of foreclosures that's going to be occurring, and there were something like 4,000 or 5,000 in the San Francisco County alone that were foreclosed on. So it's just a terrible situation. I did several videos called Middle Class Homeless, where I had people who talked about how they were about to lose their homes. And then, of course, my Bad Bad Bank song was inspired by my situation. And the first verse talks about what the Bank of America, how they basically took away my card. The second verse talks about Wells Fargo, how they reduced my credit line. Oh, and then afterwards there was another bank, the Citibanks, where I had an $18,000 credit line. I didn't even realize at the time I had this credit line. And I suddenly got a notice from them saying, well, we decided to reduce your credit. And so what happens to people is that they evaluate your credit line, and if you've used more than 50% of your credit line, then they start getting worried. But the whole point of it is when you don't have a lot of credit card debt, is you get all these cards, they want to give you credit. So the whole purpose of it, I had assumed, is that I would have the credit available when I needed it. But I think that's the big flaw, is that when you really need it, they take it away from you. And also, it goes very, very quickly because everybody's linked through these credit card bureaus, Experian, Transworld. Almost perfect credit rating, about 830, which out of 860, when all this started. And then within about a month, it was down to 792. Then it was, after 2 months, it was down to 566. So, people look at that, and it's, they're not going to loan you any money because your credit card your credit rating has been ruined. And it can happen so quickly. You build up your credit over a 20-year period, and then within 2 months, it could be just totally decimated by something like this happening to you, and the banks don't really work with you. You can be a good person, and all of a sudden, you don't have the money, and you're suddenly turned around, and you see this as this, this deadbeat that they, and somebody who's been paying all along. And my story is one that happens to so many people.